Our next panelist is Jeff Petty. Jeff Petty has worked for the last 20 years in various capacities to understand and improve the experience of students in urban public secondary schools. He has served as a teacher and principal and as a consultant to school districts on how to reorient schools in order to know students better and make their learning more engaging. He has also worked in charter and non-charter contexts to structure autonomy, accountability, and relationships between districts and schools. In 2005, Jeff started Highline Big Picture High School, now a 7th through 12th grade school, and has served as its principal for 8 years. More recently, he established and now directs the Puget Sound Consortium for School Innovation, which is a regional initiative of big picture learning. The consortium's mission is to transform educational outcomes for all students by designing interest-driven schools and building the region's capacity for public school innovation. The consortium is developing a scalable regional learning lab that integrates new school design with a collaborative network of existing schools, districts, and partners in order to better meet the needs of all students, particularly those least effectively served by existing programs. Jeff works with schools is informed by the reflection that, for the most part, his most powerful learning experience occurred during fieldwork and internships rather than in classrooms of those institutions. The topics Jeff will cover include how do we prepare modern learners for their future, and if there were no restraints, how would we transform education? Help me welcome Mr. Jeff Petty.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up here, I think, but I think I need the...
Get this so you're not confused.
Thank you. Well, just that introduction was a good example of the earlier topic. The things that you said I'm doing currently, I don't feel like I really know how to do, so I'm opening the floor to ideas on how to develop a regional school innovation zone for the next 3 days. So I work with schools and districts to design new schools, mostly secondary schools, and to redesign existing ones. At Big Picture, sometimes the way we describe our work is that if we could forget everything we know about school and instead think about what we know about learning, what makes it powerful, what makes it fun, what makes it lasting, what would we create then? The hardest thing to do about this is forget what we know about school, because I really mean not, okay, so we change the curriculum, okay, so we look at the standards. I mean, we really forget that there exists such a thing as school. I was talking with Kay Tucker on the drive about how this, I feel like the cutting edge of school innovation is not new stuff at all. It's really old, commonsensical, how people learn stuff. And the thing that makes it innovative is how divergent and different it is from our current really strange structures of school, especially secondary school. So I'm super excited to be here. I did choose this question, how do we prepare modern learners for their future? But I want to emphasize how special from an outside perspective it is that you're in this district that's inviting you to innovate to this degree. Most districts I'm in, this is going to look backwards from where you are, but there's sort of a tolerance for a certain amount of innovation. Most of the people I work with who are teachers, they want to be here, and the district is saying, oh, well, maybe we can go kind of here. And I feel like your district isn't, they're not just over here, they're inviting you to push their thinking about what they haven't even thought about yet. So it's super exciting. So anyway, I'm going to talk about something old instead of something future-y. So I'm part of this online learning community. We share ideas, post updates about what we're doing, comment on each other's work. It's called Facebook. Maybe you all are part of it also. And around the time that I learned I was going to be giving this talk and coming to this conference, a friend posted this picture of me. It's about 20 years old in a Throwback Thursday thing on my wall. Any guesses where this is from? Okay, it's here. It's from Patagonia, more specifically Chilean Patagonia, and more specifically, I don't know if you can see, there's a little red dot. So in that picture, I'm leading a group that's trying to go from the water side of that big white spot in the upper left to the inland side by a route that hasn't been done before or ever been attempted. So why are we doing this? I used to work for an outdoor skills school called NOLS, or National Outdoor Leadership School. We tried to design a course to teach people how to go mountaineering in remote and unknown places. And so we chartered a boat. There's the boat behind this guy. And here's a dinghy dropping us off on the water side with 5 weeks of food and equipment. We thought that the best way to teach students how to navigate in this completely unknown terrain was to go someplace not just completely unknown and new to them, but also to us as the leaders. So in addition to being really remote and untraveled, most of this area at the time was also unmapped. So there were these big, huge white spots on the map that said SVE, which was Sin Visión Stereoscopico, which meant we couldn't map this. So we had this negative of a satellite image, which we poured over every night. So this is us late at night trying to figure out where to go. So our idea, and this is pertinent to what I'm talking about with school design, was that we would discover this terrain in real time with our students, and together we would figure out what to do. So how do you prepare people for something you don't know much about? Same question, how do we prepare modern learners for their future? Because we don't know much about what that looks like. In our case, with this trip, it worked out beautifully. The first morning with the high tide, we realized we had been dropped off on a side of the river that was not navigable upstream. So we spent the next 2 or 3 days doing the longest, widest river crossing any of us had ever encountered. You can see a small scouting party up there. In small groups, we spent days wandering around the water trying to get on the other side of the river. This is modeling that I don't know what I'm doing, so the best ideas need to come from the group. Eventually, part of the group found a way across. We improvised a way to pendulum the entire group and all of our equipment across the current, floating on backpacks. Again, none of us had ever conducted a river crossing in that way before. So multiple river crossings continued for the next week and a half, many of us requiring us to improvise techniques that we'd never practiced before. This was the high-stakes testing moment of the trip. Probably the most intense moment I've had as an educator in any setting in terms of high-stakes learning. So finally we got to the edge of the ice, and then that picture was finding the way from the ground up onto the surface of the ice. We had thought this would take a couple of days. This is weeks into the trip. And then we were to face another at least a week and a half of navigating around broken ice and crevasses to try to get up to the snow. Okay, eventually we got to the snow and were able to travel as we had thought much of the trip would be like, in more open terrain. The need to innovate continued. We built wind walls as we had done in other ranges to protect our tents from being destroyed by the wind, but in Patagonia it's not cold enough, so there's driving sleet and rain that just decimates wind walls. So we had to dig holes to protect the tents from being destroyed by the wind. So this kind of learning is really difficult to simulate. And I want to draw 3 takeaways for you all thinking about school and how we prepare modern learners for their future. So raise your hand, please, if you self-identify as being an adult, pursuing meaningful work that you're passionate about. Okay, so that's most of us. And I would say that there are thousands more people like you in the area right around your schools, adults who are passionate about what they do, pursuing their work. So we're at a conference to create great schools. This Patagonia trip idea sounds really exotic, but I'm suggesting that this is what you do all the time in your work. He may have been doing it earlier today. If you have a smartphone with you, you might be doing this like right now as I'm talking. You're solving unforeseen problems in ways you never have before. You're navigating ambiguity. You're collaborating in intense interpersonal situations. You're inventing and creating, and you absolutely love it. And if you weren't doing that, you would be bored. Does that seem fair? Okay. So students, for the most part, are not getting to do those things I just talked about. And it's preaching to the choir to point out that while I'm talking, 40 or 50 kids in this country will drop out of school. Studies indicate that by the time they get to later grades in high school, less than half of students are intellectually engaged. So here are these three things, or the three ideas that I want to draw from that Patagonia trip. Nothing's more rigorous than reality. Greg Bamford I met in Seattle, but he lives in Colorado now. I'd highly recommend him as a partner if any of you run into him. He does design thinking in schools. If you want to learn to ride a horse, you better have a horse. And the closest we can get to the future is right now. So advice to schools: talk less and listen more. This is really contrary to all the standards and things that we have to cover. This, to me, implies a much looser school schedule than we have now, so that there's space for kids to have ideas and find adults to talk to about them. Other advice to schools: get outside yourselves. Leave school to learn. Stop leading with standards and content. Start leading with interests, curiosity, and compelling work. And stop organizing the day into contrived compartments and relationships, meaning periods, classes, I'll get more radical, certifications, credits, grades. So for us, what this looks like in school design: each student has a unique learning plan. We try to imagine school as a staging area for learning in real settings with passionate adults. And learning drives the standards, not the other way around. And that has a lot of, you could say complicated, or you could say really simple implications for assessment. Larry Rosenstock, I think folks are here from High Tech High, sort of a kindred spirit and colleague, co-founder of High Tech High. Here's the definition of rigor from Larry that I think mirrors a lot of these ideas. Rigor is being in the company of a passionate adult who's rigorously pursuing inquiry in the area of their interest and is inviting students along as peers in that adult discourse. We can do that as teachers, but we need to go outside school and include the community. Otherwise, we're assuming that the students we're around all want to be teachers. So, again, I'm really excited to be here. This is a super neat event, and I'm excited to interact with people and try to create some great things in the next few days. Thank you.